Hey everybody, this is my first video or vinyl update in about a month, so it's not from lack of buying, that's for sure. I just been a combination of being lazy and also just being busy and stuff. But anyway, I have a bunch of stuff, and I might even break this up into two videos. So first, I've got several John Coltrane records. Had Giant Steps on CD for a real long time, but this is the first time I've had it on vinyl. And really, it's one of those essentials if you're into Coltrane. Apparently, this was his first album that he had all original compositions, which I guess is sort of significant. Of course, this is a reissue. I say of course, but yeah. A couple more Coltrane. These are more obscure releases that were put out after he died. This is called Turning Point, and it's in rough shape on the cover, some tearing and stuff, but the album itself is actually in pretty good shape. I've listened to this and the next one one time already, and one of these, and I want to say it's this one, I can't recall, is fairly moderate as far as Coltrane goes. It's kind of relatively straightforward jazz of the late 50s. But I believe it's the next one. I might have them mixed up. This one's the Paris Concert. Yeah, that would make sense. This one's a little bit where you can kind of hear him stretching a little bit and kind of doing stuff that he would kind of experiment with once he got into the 60s. This one's actually from 61 or 62, but this is more like the Coltrane. Like if you were listening to the other one without knowing what you were listening to, you might not notice it was Coltrane, but with this one, it's got that signature Coltrane sound. It would make sense. He's got his the players that he played with from that era, and I want to say this is one of the first concerts or recordings that he did with these guys, but I'm not entirely sure. Anyway. More jazz here. We've got Eric Dolphy. I picked this up at the store the other day, and I've never seen this before. I'm assuming this is some sort of post-death, release, obviously, because that's his thing, his lifespan. But I had never seen this before, so I don't know when this was released. I was a little afraid that maybe it would be something like sort of a kind of a crappy recording, live recording, as far as the sound quality, but it actually sounds really good. It's I believe it's a studio release, or at least there's studio recordings, I believe. So next we've got Mavis Staples. This is her latest release that she did, and Jeff Tweedy produced it at the Wilco studio, and it's just excellent. I was a churchgoer as a kid, and have long given up on organized religion, but I have to say, when I listen to really good black gospel music, it brings me back to it stirs my soul. I mean, that's, I guess, the best way to put it, and this is no exception. I mean, it just makes me, even though, like I said, I've kind of given up on organized religion, this kind of music just makes me, for the time that I'm actually listening to it, makes me a believer again, I guess. Excellent songs, and I could be wrong, but I think you can kind of hear Jeff Tweedy's input in the arrangements. I think there's some stuff on here that it kind of feels a little bit more creative and modern as far as the way the rhythm sections were being used and stuff. A couple more reissues here. This is from the 60s. We got The Pretty Things. I want to say this is their debut, and I got this for a nice price on eBay. This is a pretty straightforward, that sort of British Invasion R&B kind of sound. It sounds a lot like early Rolling Stones, that sort of thing. It's kind of garagey in a way. Excellent, but it's pretty straightforward, three chord blues kind of arrangements and that sort of thing. They do Roadrunner, which is something that a lot of the bands back then were covering. The next one I believe is the next one after this release. Some Pretty Things. Get the picture. And on this one, the sound is relatively the same, but the songs are a little bit more varied as far as the structure and stuff. So I guess I would say I prefer this one over the two. Next one is kind of a off the beaten path here. It's Perspectives and Percussion. I really enjoy Exotica and that sort of stuff, and this is that kind of thing where back then in the late 50s and early 60s they were kind of experimenting with the stereo since it was kind of a novelty then. So with these percussive releases they did a lot of stuff with congos and things sort of panning back and forth. And it's a fun listen. Next we've got the Modern Lovers. I actually had a compilation that I think was mostly live, so I never actually had this album on CD or anything. This is the first time I've owned it. It's excellent. Next one is a reissue of Forever Changes, Love. I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with this, but this is one of those classics from the 60s that sort of garnered attention a little bit more after the fact, I guess. It's probably just one of my favorite records from that era. It's really solid, straight, from first to last track. I mean, there's not really a weak track on it. If you're not familiar with Love, it's it's sort of a, I guess psychedelic folk is probably the best way to say. A lot of acoustic arrangements, but there's strings and that sort of thing, and they use kind of Eastern influences in a way that's sort of typical of that kind of stuff. Another one I was really happy to get is Van Dyke Parks. This one's a Song Cycle. He's kind of best known, working with Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. And if you like Pet Sounds, this is relatively similar, but it's a little bit more out there than Pet Sounds. This is pretty spacey stuff. It's really interesting because I'm really amazed at how these song structures were put together, because you'd have to listen to it to understand what I'm saying, but it's just so intricate, and the time, I don't know how, it's not like there's sort of consistent drums, so it's like you just wonder how that was recorded. But I would say it's sort of a cross between Pet Sounds and maybe really early Randy Newman. If you're familiar with Randy Newman's first record, it's got sort of the orchestral stuff, and it's somewhere between that, I guess you would say, but it's really pretty trippy stuff. Let's see. We got Mandrake Memorial. It's just the band it's a psych band from the 60s, and this is a reissue. I had heard them once on an internet radio station and liked it, so I picked this up. It was really discounted cheap at one of my local stores, so I picked it up the other day. I don't know, maybe I'll run through all these instead of making it 2 videos. Got a couple of Midnight Oil releases. I had Blue Sky Mining back in the day on CD, and it's pretty cool. It's some blue vinyl. That's pretty cool. It's kind of dirty, so I got to clean it up. This is the one with Beds Are Burning, and this one came out in '87. So, go through these kind of quicker here. This was a pleasant surprise. This is a band that I only heard recently on YouTube, and it's something I'm going to explore more, is Camel. Like I said previously in another video, I'm wanting to sort of expand my prog collection, and this is an excellent album. As you can see, I'm sure that's Roger Dean, it looks like, that style of artwork. But this is kind of, I would say, a little bit on the side of Pink Floyd, because it's got, there's sort of the softness to it, sort of mellowness at times, and I really like that. It gets kind of heavier too with some of the guitars, but it's a nice mix, and I was really pleasantly surprised. It's a strong album. Next is a newer band. It's Red Fang. It's It's a sort of newer metal band from Portland, from the area I'm in. And Grecian Thunder showed it on one of their other albums on one of his videos, so I went and checked it out and liked it. It's sort of a cross between Queens of the Stone Age and the Melvins is probably the best way I would explain it. Kind of sludgy in a way, but really good melodically. It's got this sort of marbled aqua vinyl. I'm a little disappointed only that it's a little noisy. I think it's actually the pressing is probably, I don't know, maybe just sometimes you can get pressings that aren't very clean, but when the music's loud enough that when you're listening to it, it's not a problem. But sort of in softer spots or in between tracks, you can hear a little bit of noise, which is, like I said, disappointing. Got one by Split Enz. And last one is ZZ Top's second album, Grand Mud. This is the one right before they started. I don't think they had any hits on this. Cocoa Blue, maybe. I don't know, but I like early ZZ Top. Well, it looks like I got through them all. So that's it. See you next time.